The roar of the crowd thundered through the walls, the bass reverberating like a second heartbeat. My face bore its usual mask, the impossibly perfect K-pop star, the golden boy of Aurora. I smiled, waved, and tilted my head just right for the cameras, eyes glinting like stars. Inside, though, it was chaos. My chest felt tight, my breaths shallow. Every flash was a needle pricking my temples. Keep going, Jay, I told myself. The world is watching. When the makeup artist touched up my sweat-slicked face backstage, I wanted to flinch, but instead, I beamed the signature Jae-Hyun grin. Jiwoo, my razor-sharp manager, paced like an agitated general. Jay, the press is waiting. Smile bigger, be... I barely heard him over the static sound in my ears. I'm fine, I lied, something I'd grown disturbingly good at. I wasn't fine. Night after night of endless rehearsals, blaring lights, rabid fans clawing for pieces of me. It gnawed at my soul as much as my body. But you can't crumble when millions worship you. My voice fed them. My face was their fantasy. My life wasn't mine. You owe them, I thought. Without them, you're nothing. Then it hit. A white-hot pain surged through my chest, ripping the strength from my legs. I stumbled, grabbing the edge of the sound equipment for balance. It wasn't enough. In that split second, I saw Jiwoo's eyes widen, a rare crack in his stoic professionalism, followed by Noah, my bandmate and closest friend, shouting my name. The room spun, the overhead halogens morphing into incoherent smears of color. My knees hit the floor. Thousands of screams erupted beyond the curtain, but they faded fast, their volume dimming into a distant hum like a record playing underwater. Paramedics swarmed within minutes. I was vaguely aware of hands pressing to my chest, voices barking commands, the flash of someone's tears. Was that Noah? Jiwoo's words cut through, sharp and panicked. This can't happen. Not now. His image. The group. They lifted me onto the stretcher, but I couldn't move, couldn't respond. My body was still this perfect product, but my mind floated above it all, desperate to escape the cage I'd built. Then, darkness. For the first time in years, the applause stopped. Everything stopped. A faint question echoed somewhere deep inside me. What does it all even mean? The world around me dissolved into weightlessness. My body, drained and motionless, felt distant, like an abandoned shell tethered only by a sliver of memory. Yet I was aware. A golden pulse throbbed in the air, neither light nor sound, but something in between. It gripped my senses, washing over me like a whisper and a roar all at once. I drifted untethered through endless space, colors, vivid, indescribable colors, swirled around me, each carrying echoes of laughter, music, and sighs. Their presence was soothing, yet strangely disorienting. My mind raced against an unfamiliar calm. Am I dead? Is this it? But the questions felt hollow. The crushing anxiety that once defined me was gone, replaced by an overwhelming peace. My heart, was it even beating anymore? Felt light, unburdened. For the first time, I couldn't hear the phantom shouts of my fans. No cheers demanding perfection, no voices reminding me I wasn't enough. A distant voice, impossibly soft yet unignorable, called my name. Jay. It wasn't a command nor an accusation. It was just love, pure love. The sound pierced through the security fences I'd built around my soul, layers of achievements, applause, and shallow grandeur meant to mask the emptiness I refused to face. And suddenly, I was falling inward. Flashes of memory surrounded me, my 8-year-old self plucking uncertain chords on my grandmother's battered guitar, singing just for her, signing my first contract, blood pounding in my ears as I sealed my fate with ink and forgettable dreams of glory, standing on unattainable stages, drowning in oceans of screaming fans, yet feeling so utterly alone. My success crumbled around me, a forgotten facade. Who am I? I whispered to the nothingness around me. Without them, what am I? The voice came again, closer this time. You are more. Come and see. Before I could think, a radiant light emerged. It glittered like every spotlight I had ever known, only softer, inviting. It wasn't blinding. It was warmth itself, pulling me out of myself. I hesitated, clinging to the idea of my career, my image, the only things I ever thought defined me. But for once, the illusion felt distant, unreal. The light pulsed again. In its embrace, I knew I had a choice, release or retreat. And I stepped forward. The light enveloped me, tender and alive. It wasn't harsh or overpowering. It was love made visible, pulling the threads of my scattered soul together. As I stood, weightless yet whole, a figure emerged from the brilliance. His presence stopped the cascade of questions in my mind, leaving only quiet awe. He didn't announce himself, yet I knew instantly this was Jesus. He looked nothing like the westernized depictions I'd glimpsed in movies or holiday decor. His face carried deep kindness, strength tempered by gentleness, and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the world alongside endless compassion. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The part of me that had been crafted for public perfection, the poised, polished idol, crumbled. I was simply Jay, a trembling soul without the crutch of fame. You're wondering why I am here, he said, his voice a melody of familiarity. It wasn't accusing, but neither did it shy away. I see your doubt. I've seen everything. The weight you've been carrying, the ache you've hidden behind the applause. I tried to form words clinging to logic. Am I dead? My voice cracked, barely audible. You are not gone, Jay, he said gently. But you've stood before the brink, and I've called you here to show you something you've long forgotten. The memories swirled again. Me as a boy, childhood laughter ringing as I played music simply to make my grandmother smile. Then, the polished dream turned nightmare, relentless schedules, blinding fame, shallow accolades. The facade I crafted so well split open before his gaze. I've achieved so much, I whispered, clinging to it still. I worked so hard. Doesn't that mean something? It means you are trapped, chasing voices that cannot fill you, he replied gently. His words struck, not as condemnation, but a truth I couldn't ignore. You were made with a purpose far greater. But first, you must ask yourself, what is your soul worth? Tears pooled in my eyes. No camera to capture it, no fan to cheer. Just me, raw, exposed. But I don't know how to be anything else, I admitted. His hand reached toward me, radiating love. Come, Jay, let me show you who you truly are. And for the first time, I didn't look back. I stepped closer. The warmth of his hand lingered, steadying me as the world around us shifted. The light grew richer, transforming into a breathtaking expanse. Vibrant meadows unfolded, dotted with the laughter of people whose joy seemed untainted by pain or regret. Children's voices rang out in melodic harmony, their innocence unbroken. The air was thick with peace, a music unto itself. My chest tightened, not with the familiar pang of anxiety, but with longing, a yearning for something I couldn't name. This, Jesus said softly, is what love creates when it's fully received. I watched as a group of people linked hands, their laughter rising like birds into the eternal sky. Their unity felt magnetic, a reminder of something I'd never experienced. My concerts were chaotic love, not this pure, uncomplicated belonging. They know something you've forgotten, he said, his voice like calm waves. The love you've sought through fame is a shadow of the love you were created for. Before I could respond, the scene shifted. The light dimmed, the ground beneath us dissolving into a void. I gasped, my body tensing instinctively. We were now on the edge of a chasm that seemed to devour all light. From within came muffled cries, haunting and distorted, pleas that carried no hope, only anguish. Shapes moved below, their faces obscured, but their torment evident. They hold themselves here, Jesus explained, his eyes fierce yet mournful. They rejected love, chose pride, greed, blindness. This isn't the punishment of an angry God. It is separation caused by their own hearts. One figure caught my gaze. His face came into focus, a music executive I'd once admired. His relentless ambition had inspired me once. Now he was curled into himself, whispering words of remorse that dissolved into the darkness. It struck like a hammer. Was this where my path was leading? I staggered back, breath shallow. But I didn't know. I didn't understand. Jesus turned to me, his expression tender yet piercing. You felt the emptiness, Jay. You heard the whispers of truth. You chose to drown them out. I fell to my knees, trembling. The applause I once craved felt trivial, a lifeboat in an infinite ocean. What will happen to me? That, he said, offering his hand once more, depends on what you choose next. My life unfurled like a film projected against eternity itself, every detail, every breath, every choice laid bare with piercing clarity. Scenes from my rise to stardom flashed before me, vivid and unflinching, the deafening roar of screaming fans, the glare of stage lights, contracts signed with trembling hands. At first, I felt pride. Look at all I've built, I told myself. But pride quickly crumbled into shame as the lens zoomed closer, revealing what I had chosen to ignore. I saw the fleeting friendships, the hollow exchanges, the times I prioritized fame over family. My grandmother's face appeared, those soft, wrinkled hands I used to hold. How many calls from her had I ignored? I remembered her voice cracking when she asked why I seldom visited after my career took off. She had always believed in me, even when I stopped believing in myself. Now I saw her watching me on TV, her eyes misty, whispering to the screen, "You're more than this, Jay." The weight of years pressed against my chest. I didn't mean to. My voice trembled, breaking under the burden of regret. I just wanted to be loved, Jesus finished for me. His gaze was tender but unrelenting, a mirror reflecting my deepest fears and truths. You search for validation where it could never be truly found. It hit me with brutal clarity. The applause, the awards, the screaming fans, they had never filled the void. Worse, I had known all along. The restlessness inside me was a question I kept running from. What if this doesn't make me enough? Tears blurred my vision. I thought my voice, my talent, they were mine, to prove I deserved this life. Your gifts were not given to prove your worth, Jesus said, his voice gentle but resonant. They were given to glorify love, to heal. Your talent was always meant to lead others to something greater, not to build walls around your own fear. Shame burned through me, but so did a glimmer of hope. Can I change it? His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and steady. It's not too late, Jay, but you must choose. Will you keep running, or will you finally come home? For the first time, I didn't hesitate. Show me the way. The weight of his words felt heavier than any trophy I'd ever held. Jesus watched me, not with impatience, but with an unshakable calm that seemed to steady the fractures in my soul. Still, I hesitated. My mind fought to measure the cost of what he was offering. Surrender, let go. The words echoed, clashing against the years I'd spent fortifying my image, cementing my worth in the roar of strangers. But if I let go, I stammered, my voice trembling, what's left of me? Who am I if I'm not that, the idol they scream for? Jesus stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. The truth, Jay. Without the masks, without the stage, you are still loved, fiercely, eternally. That has always been your worth, not your voice, not the crowds, just you. His words unraveled me. A knot of emotions constricted my chest as a vision emerged, my mother smiling as I played guitar for her, before the fame, before the noise. Her love had been simple, honest, mine, before I ever sought to earn it. I don't know how, I whispered, tears falling freely now. How to stop chasing the applause. You begin by trusting, he said, extending his hand. Trusting that love isn't earned, that it's already yours. I stared at his hand, arms shaking. Part of me resisted, clinging to the ghost of that applause, the only affirmation I had ever known. Yet, against its hollow pull, his presence felt overwhelming, like sunlight after a lifetime of shadow. Still, fear reared its head. But what if I fail? What if I can't live differently? You will fall, Jay, he said, but grace will catch you every time. It's not perfection I ask of you, only your heart. My breath hitched as the final wall around me crumbled. Slowly I reached out, trembling as my palm met his. Warmth coursed through me, not like a fire, but like water, gentle, cleansing, filling spaces I hadn't realized were empty. I'm tired of running, I admitted, my voice cracking like a confession. I want more. And you will have it, Jesus said, pulling me into an embrace that dissolved every last fragment of fear. In that moment, I knew I was home. The light poured into me, filling the void I hadn't realized was infinite. Like threads of gold weaving through shattered glass, it pieced together all my brokenness. For the first time, I wasn't performing, wasn't fighting, I was simply being. The roar of silence, the absence of striving, it was freedom in its purest form. I'm done running, I whispered, a confession more to myself than to him. I want to be more. You already are, he said simply, his words carrying a weight that sank deep into my soul. In that moment, time folded inward and a tender memory surfaced. I was 7, standing in my grandmother's garden, singing with abandon to the melody of summer winds. She clapped her frail hands and laughed. That's my Jae-Hyun. Sing, my boy. Not so the world will love you, but so it will know love. Tears fell freely now, her hope for me ringing louder than the applause I had spent a lifetime chasing. You've always known the truth, Jesus said, his steady gaze holding the fragments of who I was. The gifts you poured into the world weren't meant to glorify you. They were meant to serve, to heal, to remind others of love that doesn't fail. There was clarity now, not condemnation, not shame, but truth so undeniable it seared through me. The vision shifted again, and my breath caught. I stood in a quiet room, watching my bandmate, Noah, sitting alone by a hospital bed, my hospital bed. His face was pale, his hands folded tightly, nearly crushing a worn rosary. Please, he whispered, his voice quaking. Bring him back, not as he was, but better. He's not ready to leave like this. My chest ached as I stepped closer. Noah's faith, quiet, steadfast, had been invisible to me amidst the chaos. I'd drawn so many walls around my heart. I hadn't seen the people who truly cared. That's Jay, Jesus said softly, pointing to Noah, the world's golden star. But this is what love looks like when applause fades. If you return, will you live to love like this? Tears flowed heavier now. Yes, I will. Jesus smiled, radiant. The warmth of his presence pressed against me once more. Then go. Shine not for yourself, but for others. The light exploded, and with it, everything. But this time I knew it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. I woke to chaos. My eyelids felt weighted, and my body tethered by weakness, but the sounds of hurried voices and the rhythmic beeping of machines anchored me. The familiar scent of antiseptic filled my lungs. A hospital. Slowly, I opened my eyes, squinting against the pale glow of fluorescent lighting. The first thing I saw was Noah. He was slumped in a chair beside my bed, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Noah, I croaked, my throat dry. His head shot up, eyes wide in disbelief. Relief flooded his face as he surged forward. Jay, you're awake. Thank God you're awake. His voice cracked, trembling with something deeper than exhaustion. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Jiwoo marched in, flanked by 2 assistants and a clipboard. His stern, controlled demeanor faltered briefly, replaced by an unfamiliar flicker of vulnerability. Jay? He exhaled sharply, striding to my side. It's good you're back. The fans are in a frenzy. The media is... Not now, Jiwoo, Noah interrupted, his voice uncharacteristically firm. Give him a minute. Jiwoo hesitated, his jaw tightening, but eventually stepped back. I closed my eyes, waves of memories from wherever I'd been crashing against me. The light. His voice. You must choose. Will you keep running, or will you finally come home? Jay? Noah's voice pulled me back. Are you okay? I blinked at him, trying to find words for the impossible. Noah, I saw something. My voice quivered, but I couldn't stop. I met him. Jesus. His breath hitched, eyes wide with recognition. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the worn rosary I'd seen in the vision. I prayed for you, he whispered. The warmth I'd felt in the light flickered in my chest, faint but undeniable. Suddenly, it didn't matter that Jiwoo and the world outside would demand I explain myself later. For now, I just wanted to live differently, to love differently. Noah, I said, my voice steadier now. I think I've been given a second chance. And for the first time in years, I smiled. Not the perfect smile of an idol, but one of quiet truth. The recording studio was suffused with an unfamiliar stillness, the kind that made my skin prickle. I sat alone on the piano bench, staring at the ivory keys glowing under soft light. It had been weeks since I was discharged from the hospital, weeks since I felt the light seep into every broken corner of my soul. Yet now, faced with the weight of creating something true, I felt frozen. Jiwoo's harsh words from earlier rang in my ears. Releasing a song like this is career suicide. Grace? Really? Fans want you. Jay, the perfect idol, not whatever this is. But Noah had countered him, his quiet confidence unwavering. He's not making this for them. This is his story now. And it was. Somewhere deep inside, I had made peace with the fact that my career might never look the same, and, strangely, that felt like freedom. The fans deserved honesty, not another manufactured product, and this song was my first act of surrender. I lifted my hands to the keys and let my fingers fall, trembling but certain. A gentle melody poured out, raw and unpolished, pulling memories with it. My grandmother's laughter as she held my tiny hands over her old guitar, the loneliness of millions of voices that never truly knew me, and the warmth I'd felt in Jesus' embrace. I began to sing. In the noise, I lost my name. In the lights, I sought my flame. But the shadows knew my fear. And then you called. You were always here. The words spilled out of me, unfiltered and imperfect. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept going, weaving my experience into every note. This wasn't for awards or charts. This was my soul laid bare. When the last chord faded, silence blanketed the room. It wasn't the suffocating silence that had once haunted me. It was a quiet that breathed peace back into the air. Behind me, Noah cleared his throat. I hadn't even heard him enter. That, he said, voice thick with emotion, is going to mean something to a lot of people. I nodded, wiping my face. For once, it didn't matter what others thought. Grace wasn't just a song. It was a beginning, my first step toward home. The first backlash came swiftly. Headlines blared, accusations, Jae-Hyun's religious rebranding, publicity stunt. Social media twisted the sincerity of Grace, dissecting my motives, questioning my faith. Some fans pleaded for the real me to return, while others proclaimed I'd lost my mind. On the surface, I kept calm, but a question gnawed at me late at night, alone in my apartment. Can I truly stay in this world and live my faith? The messages of support buoyed me at first, letters from fans confessing that my song had given them strength. Yet, even these felt heavy. Their gratitude, their wounds, it was a weight I didn't feel worthy to carry. I feared falling short, stumbling under so much expectation. Why would God give me this purpose? I admitted to Noah one afternoon, if I'm not strong enough to handle it. He sighed, leaning against the rehearsal room's wall. You're not supposed to handle it alone, Jay. That's why you pray. You told me Jesus showed you grace, but you're forgetting to give it to yourself. I wanted to believe him, but the noise of the world still crept in. Jiwoo's constant warnings about the band's reputation, the awkward smiles of industry peers who now avoided me at events. Fame had become a battlefield, and I didn't trust myself to navigate it. That night, I knelt for the first time in my life. My bedroom was cluttered, the city's noise faint outside, but the stillness inside me grew as I whispered, God, I can't do this alone. Help me be enough. A quiet warmth settled over me. No voice, no theatrics, just a soft clarity that whispered, You're not here to be perfect, just honest. The next day I walked into the studio. The band was rehearsing, still adjusting to the new dynamics my transformation had brought. Let's rework the set list, I said suddenly. Jiwoo bristled. We need to include Grace, not as a solo, as our story, together. It wasn't about rebelling against the world anymore. It was about living for something higher than its applause. I didn't need the crowd's roar now. I only needed the truth to echo. The stadium pulsed with the energy of tens of thousands, the crowd chanting, lights flashing like stars reborn. I closed my eyes, standing center stage, letting the moment settle into my chest. It wasn't suffocating, not like before. The air, though thick with anticipation, felt alive with a purpose greater than the applause. This wasn't a performance, it was a testimony. Noah gave a subtle nod from his position at the keyboard, his gaze steady, brimming with quiet pride. The bandmates who once watched me spiral now stood beside me, unified in a way we'd only dreamed of. Jiwoo hovered at the edge of the stage, his usual tension tempered by something softer, a trust that had taken months to build. Thank you for being here, I began, my voice steady yet vulnerable, a far cry from the polished idol I once was. The crowd roared in response, but I raised a hand gently. Tonight isn't just about music, it's about grace and a second chance. A hush fell over the crowd, their curiosity palpable. I shared the story piece by piece, the collapse, the overwhelming love, and the decision to step into a light I once ran from. I spoke of Jesus, not as an abstract idea, but as the presence that had rebuilt me when fame shattered me. I admitted the fear, the backlash, the nights I wrestled with doubt. And then I told them about the peace, one that surpassed the noise, the accolades, the spotlight. This next song, I said, my voice breaking, isn't just mine, it's yours. It's for anyone who's ever felt like they weren't enough. It's called Eternal Melody. The first note rang out, soft and unassuming, before building into a swell that felt like hope itself. As I sang, hands rose in unison, not in worship of me, but in surrender to something far greater. The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, weaving grace into every corner of the stadium. The weight of fame was gone. In its place stood freedom. I looked skyward as the final note faded, whispering a silent prayer. I'll keep walking this path, Lord. Just guide me. God will guide you, and I promise you this, it's worth it. If you've been touched by my story, if you felt a stirring in your heart, I encourage you to seek Jesus. Open your heart to him, and he will meet you where you are. Thank you for listening to my journey. If you'd like to share your thoughts or ask for prayer, please leave your name in the comments below. And if you're curious to hear more stories like mine, check out the videos on your screen now. Each one is a testament to the power of faith, grace, and God's unending love.